This is a podcast by the News Minute, and you are listening to South Central.
Hello and welcome to South Central, a TNM podcast where we put the South at the center. I am Dhanya Rajendran, your host. Remember, this is a show that drops every Friday. So make South Central your weekend listen. Spread the word. Tell your family, friends, colleagues, etc. to also listen to the show where we discuss Southern India's top headlines and we delve deep into at least 2 topics per week. Joining me is my temporary co-host, Anisha Sheth, because Pooja Prasanna is still on holiday. Pooja, when are you coming back? And Anisha,
no,
not even next week, the
Oh,
week
damn.
after that. One more week for you, Anisha, and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Okay, so remember, this is a show that drops every Friday, and in every show, we give you recommendations. The host and the guests who come on the show tell you a book to read, a movie to watch, and all these show recommendations are part of the show notes. So don't forget to check that. Okay, so this is a special episode because a few months ago, one of our subscribers had written to us saying, every month, why don't you have one expert on the show where you talk about a lot of things? So this week, we are going to have Yogendra Yadav join us here on South Central, psephologist, activist, politician. He dons many hats and all of you must be familiar with him. We'll speak to him about the SIR or the Special Intensive Revision process, which the Election Commission of India has announced for 12 states, including Tamil Nadu and Kerala. And we'll talk to him about some things more general. Before we go to the headlines, we are ready with the first story of our series called The Shady Business of Stolen Footage. It's actually a dark series on how CCTV footage is stolen, hacked into, taken by people and then sold in the dark web, stole on Telegram channels. The first 2 stories brought to you by Megha Mugundan and Shivani Kawa will look at CCTV footage from 2 different kind of institutions where all of us go, you and me. It's going to be shocking and it's going to have a Gujarat, Tamil Nadu and Kerala connection, the first 2 stories. So do keep a watch out for the series. And this is a reporting series which we are hoping you will help us with. The link is in the show notes or in the description. Do contribute to this reporting fund because we intend to bring at least 6 to 7 stories on how CCTV footage or any CCTVs that you place in your house or office are being misused across India. Okay, now to the headlines, Anisha.
Let's start with Andhra Pradesh, where Cyclone Monta's landfall has occurred near Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Konaseema district. The cyclone, at this point in time at least, it's likely to affect 403 mandals in 22 districts across Andhra. And it's also likely to cause heavy rainfall in the neighboring states like South Chhattisgarh and Odisha.
And Telangana too.
And Telangana also.
But remember, by the time this episode is out, Monta has already made the landfall. The rainfall will be over.
Okay, so Andhra High Court orders CID probe into TTD Parakamani scam. So in 2023 April, Parakamani volunteer CV Ravi Kumar was found to have concealed foreign currency in his undergarments. And investigators later alleged that Kumar had repeatedly stolen from over the years from the TTD's coffers.
Dhanya, so Parakamani is basically the offerings which are given to Tirupati Tirumala Devasthanam. So this footage was released which showed that this man was actually taking in money. And when we say money, it was almost, I think, $11,000. So it was a lot of money. And when the investigation was first done, they found that he had properties worth 70 to 100 crores. So it was assumed that he would have been siphoning off money from the hundi where people put money for months or years. And I think they tried to strike a deal. The Lok Adalat was first investigating this case. A deal was struck where he said he would give away 40 crores of his properties back to the TTD. But now the BJP and I think that TDP also has been saying that YSRCP played a role in this. They have been accusing the YSRCP of running the TTD in a haphazard manner because remember this happened when YSRCP was in power. So they've been asking for a new probe. The Andhra Pradesh High Court in fact has asked for 2 probes. One is by the CID and one is by the Vigilance Department. But I was wondering whether this Ravi Kumar would be the only person who's doing that. In this there was footage. So they released the footage of him stealing. But I'm sure it's not just a one person thing, and now there are lots of calls being made, especially by Agama priests, etc., calling for the way in which this money is counted itself to be changed. Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to Karnataka. Well, the chief minister's position is in discussion again. So Siddaramaiah has said that he will be CM for a full term if the High Command decides. So the Karnataka government will complete half of its term in office on November 20th. Dhanya, you want to?
Yeah, I mean, we are just bracing ourselves for that fight which is about to come. But see, whenever we speak to anyone who's based out of Delhi, they all say that Siddaramaiah will agree to the handover, especially if Rahul Gandhi asks him, because it was Rahul Gandhi who made the call that Siddaramaiah will be the chief ministerial face, right? He had come for that birthday celebration of Siddaramaiah before the elections, and that is where he had taken that call. So most people believe that if Rahul Gandhi says Siddaramaiah, you have Siddaramaiah ji, you have to step aside for DK Shivakumar, then Siddaramaiah ji will do it. Now, there are two things here. One is that there are some people who believe that Siddaramaiah will ask for time to complete that 7 years tenure which Devaraj Ars had completed. So he may want to be chief minister till next March, also complete one more budget and then step down. That is one possibility, which DK Shivakumar may agree to because it is just a matter of 3-4 months. Now, the second problem before the Congress is there is another lobby which is sort of building up, especially the Dalit ministers in the cabinet are now saying that they want a Dalit chief minister. So Parameshwara, Mahadevappa, Timmapur, K. Muniappa and Jharki Holi, they've all sort of come together and they may lobby for a Dalit chief minister. But I don't think that, okay, there will be tension for around 1.5 months, but eventually, if a promise was made to DK Shivakumar before elections, unless something really major happens, I think the Congress will have to keep it.
Yeah. So, I mean, in fact, the many Dalit leaders within the Congress are, for the second time around planning a Dalit convention, which they shelved, some time back because of some issues with the High Command. Shall we move on to the next one?
Yes.
Yeah. So the Karnataka High Court stays the order banning private groups from using government spaces. Now, this was a government order issued on October 18th, some days after the Minister Priyank Kharge objected to the RSS using government facilities, government premises for its activities. Now, this order is slightly problematic because it also affects, everybody else, right, who is not doing anything nefarious or sinister or generally problematic.
Any democratic rally itself, because the order says any group of more than 10 people will be considered a rally and they have to take permission. This is how they were clamping down on all anti-Palestine, anti-Israel protests, protests by sanitation workers. So, okay, you want to make sure the RSS does not have any rallies. Your interns making sure nobody has rallies.
Yeah, and like the surveillance on groups planning any anti-Israel, any criticism of Israel, press meets or even discussions, the police have cracked down on them really badly, randomly calling, activists and things like that. So this, already there is so much surveillance and it will just further, affect any other democratic movement also.
Okay, Anisha, before you go further, I have to interrupt this podcast to make a very special announcement. This episode of South Central is brought to you by Newslaundry. Our partner in journalism, our sister organization, our companion in gathering news. No ad breaks, it's just us, me and Anisha here at South Central, sponsored by Newslaundry. So if you're not a subscriber yet of Newslaundry and the News Minute, then let me try to change your mind. It's just rupees 500 a month. There are also other plans. You take it and you will be letting 2 news organizations function, survive, sustain, and do a lot of news stories which concern you. So keep journalism free because that's what we believe in. Scan the QR code or click on the link in the show notes below. Become a subscriber of the Newslaundry and the News Minute today. Okay, ad interruption over. Anisha, you can go on.
Okay, we go on to Kerala where an Adivasi group is accusing the Kerala government of using film stars for photo ops and electoral gimmicks. So they've appealed to Mohanlal, Mammootty and Kamal Hassan to withdraw from that campaign which is set to begin on November 1st.
Okay, so basically Kerala had said that they've achieved this milestone of being extremely poverty free and that they had identified around 64,000 families, which is roughly 0.2% of the state's population. They had a lot of programs which were targeted specifically at this population. And now they provided them with housing, ration, I think education. There are lots of things which come into the Niti Aayog's multi-dimensional poverty index. It has become a huge controversy. First, Asha workers, a section of them who have been protesting outside the Kerala Secretariat for more than a year now, they first wrote to these three actors who are supposed to inaugurate this announcement on November 1st along with the Chief Minister, saying that Asha workers too will not actually qualify to be above extremely poverty free because their daily wage is some 281. But I don't think that's the case, considering in the multi-dimensional poverty index, it is 180 per person per day. If you get that much, then you're supposed to be above the poverty index. Now the Adivasi Gotra Mahasabha has written, they are saying that there are a lot of Adivasi groups which live scattered across many districts in Kerala who do not have their own houses despite promises made by consecutive Kerala governments. So we did ask Minister M.B. Rajesh. He said that they will be putting out a very comprehensive document before the announcement is made, which will explain how and why they looked at the Adivasi population. So we are waiting for that.
Okay, let's go on to Tamil Nadu. The Madras High Court gives Tamil Nadu government 10 days to submit the draft SOP for political rallies. So the court is hearing petitions in the wake of the 41 deaths that occurred in Karur during a stampede for Vijay's rally, the TVK's rally in Karur.
Yeah, but we also need to mention that there's a similar SOP which now Karnataka has made after the Chinnaswamy stampede. One more thing we should have put in the headlines, but we haven't actually, I forgot, is Vijay met 37 families from Karur.
Yes.
I mean, I have never seen something more obnoxious.
Why obnoxious? Because he met them at a resort in Mahabalipuram, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand Vijay saying, oh my God, if I go to Karur, there will again be a security problem. We have reported on Power Trip, which is our newsletter, every Tuesday, that he was not getting a place because most of the Kalyana Mandapams in Karur did not want to give place to him. But the optics that you are making grieving families come all the way from Karur to Chennai to meet you is just wrong. It's a wrong precedent, I feel. And I'm also a bit disturbed by the sound bites that we have been seeing of families saying that they just want Vijay to pose for a picture with their dead son or daughter's picture. When we do talk about Tamil Nadu and cults and movie stars, but this is a reckoning. This is what is actually happening on the ground. Yeah. Now to Telangana.
The police killed Riaz Sheikh in staged encounter, the family alleges. So Sheikh Riaz was accused of stabbing a constable to death and he was shot dead by the Telangana police in a hospital. His family has now alleged that he was initially targeted over false charges and then the encounter that killed him was staged.
Yeah. So again, I'm going to just tell you to watch. Let me explain this week. It is about encounter cult. And it talks about the Hyderabad Police Commissioner V.C. Sajjanar, who is very well known for 2 encounters at least, one in Hyderabad and one in Warangal. So Pooja's show is about how people, the media, the movies, etc. They really glorify these encounter cops. In this case, I think there are 1 or 2 cases which happened in Hyderabad recently. Yeah.
Okay, I will just take a moment to remind our audiences to check out and read our Police Impunity series, where we also look at encounters and police impunity in general and how wide-ranging that is. Moving on to the national headlines, PR over pollution, Delhi CM's Clean Yamuna interview shot beside a pond.
Yeah.
I just don't know what to say.
So BBC had this amazing package. Even Newslaundry has Anmol. Anmol, by the way, is one of my favorite Newslaundry video journalists. He has done a story where the Yamuna is here and they've created this pond with nice looking water and all the interviews are there. I mean, I don't understand these journalists also who don't ask. Sudhir Chaudhary and Anjana Om Kashyap apparently did these interviews at the Vasudev Ghat. And why didn't they ask? You actually made a pond for PR purposes, madam.
My God. I mean, yeah. So visuals can also lie. I mean, apart from outright lies that many journalists
But
are
we should
spouting.
appreciate that they didn't do an AI pond. They actually made a pond. They put effort into this
I mean,
deception.
that's how low the bar is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so our discussion today is about the special intensive revision which the Election Commission has announced will be undertaken in 12 states and union territories from the 28th of October. This will cover nearly 51 crore people in India, and in the southern states it will cover Tamil Nadu, Kerala and the Union Territory of Puducherry. Other than that, Chhattisgarh, Goa, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, West Bengal, Andaman Nicobar Island and Lakshadweep will be covered in the second phase. So the Special Intensive Revision or SIR has been quite controversial when the first phase was done in Bihar. Joining us today is Mr. Yogendra Yadav, who understands what exactly went wrong with SIR. He's even gone to the Supreme Court. But Mr. Yadav, this time when Gyanesh Kumar held that press meet, the first thing he said is that it was hassle-free. There were no appeals in Bihar at all. In fact, you had posed 14 questions to him before that press meet started as to what were the lessons for the ECI from Bihar. But I don't think in that press meet they spoke about any specific lessons they learned.
That unfortunately is the case, Dhanya, because the Election Commission of India is no longer acting as a constitutional body, a neutral constitutional body, an umpire in the game. They are increasingly, the impression you get from the way they speak, the way they do, is that they are very much party to the game. And many of these press conferences increasingly now are PR exercises. I don't see why constitutional authorities should get into PR exercises. I can see why political parties do so. They need to get votes. Ganesh Kumarji, from what I can see, doesn't need to get votes. So why is he doing this PR exercise? And all that stuff about, all the people of Bihar cooperated with us. We want to thank and congratulate. And all the political parties cooperated with us, 1.6 lakh votes. I mean, all this is just PR nonsense. The simple fact, as everyone knows, is that political parties had opposed it. Political parties held meetings and told the EC that they are opposed to it. The fact is that the Election Commission went to the Supreme Court to say that political party agents have not filed any objections. What can we do? The simple fact is that in Bihar, large number of enumeration forms were forged. So when they say 7.24 crore people of Bihar have cooperated, when everyone in the world knows that at least 20% of those forms, some say even 30, 40% of those forms were forged, were filled by the BLO. There's a sort of ironic ring to all these claims. But that apart, of the lessons, Election Commission has learned one kind of lesson. It has not learned another kind of lesson. When you carry out an exercise like this, at such a grand scale, which is to say 8 crore people in Bihar roughly were filtered, were approached. After that, you want to sit back and say, okay, was this exercise the kind of thing that we should have undertaken? To my mind, that is not the lesson Election Commission wanted to learn. Because for the last few years, we have a new pattern in the country. We first decide on the medicine, and then we look for disease for which this particular medicine is suitable. This is exactly what the Election Commission was doing. They had decided that SIR is the medicine. Then they kept identifying different kind of disease. Some fitted, some did not fit. And the lesson that the Election Commission has learned from Bihar is how best to administer this medicine. Whether the medicine was appropriate or not is something the Election Commission is not willing to look at. So all the improvements that have been mentioned and improvements that have been noticed in the media and very generously commented upon, all these are better ways of administering a medicine which is pre-decided, whose efficacy is not at all clear. Please remember, the problem with Bihar was not that it was hastily done. It was, not only that it was hastily done, not only that there were all kinds of administrative hiccups and chaos. there are fundamental problems with the very idea of SIR, about its constitutionality, about its legality, about how it would affect the universal adult franchise in India. Those things have remained unaddressed. If I could mention the lessons that, let's say, I learned from the SIR exercise, because I monitored it closely. SIR exercise convinced me that our electoral rolls were indeed more faulty than even I had imagined to begin with. It convinced me that the routine supplementary revision, which is done at the end of the year or sometimes just before the election, is not adequate. Therefore, it convinced me that a special measure is required, and that special measure must include house-to-house visits. In that sense, if that is what Election Commission claims, I would agree with the Election Commission. These are things that we have learned. It also taught us some other things which Election Commission doesn't want to understand and doesn't want to learn. It taught us that the whole idea of asking ordinary people to fill enumeration form was cumbersome, was unnecessary, did not contribute at all to the cleaning of the electoral rolls. Number two, it demonstrated that asking the whole effort of checking citizenship was pointless. I mean, after this entire exercise, they are unable to give a number of the number of foreigners that they detected, while the entire exercise was centered around citizenship. And we were told Ghuspatia, this, that, and the other. And even the Election Commission had included that one of the objectives. But they have no number to report so far. So it showed that the exercise of determining citizenship by the Election Commission was a pointless exercise. And finally, it also showed that Election Commission, the kind of documents that they asked, these documents were simply not available with the people. And if you ask those kind of documents, then people will be disenfranchised. Now, the trouble is that Election Commission is unwilling to learn those basic lessons, because they would then raise a question over the very idea of SIR. Frankly, what we need is a simple old-style intensive revision, which is to say the BLO goes from house to house, checks the number of names, checks whether there has been any deletion is required, checks whether any additions are required. Those things are done on the spot. A signature is obtained. And that's the end of the matter. If you have special doubts about someone, then you ask for their documents. And if there is objection about someone's citizenship, you ask the objector to produce an evidence. This is what it used to be. This needs to be supplemented with sophisticated IT things to do deduplication, etc. That's all we need. We do not need this very peculiar, special, illegal, extra-constitutional mechanism called the SIR.
Okay. So for those listening, SIR in Bihar has been sort of a distant topic for most people in other states. A lot of people would have observed what's happening, but perhaps not in a great detail. To just explain, everyone who's eligible to vote, who's above 18 years old, now have to be vigilant in these 12 states, because you all have to fill an enumeration form. Now, this is if you have a voter ID card, if you do not have a voter ID card, whatever it is, if you want to be registered as a voter in the next election, you have to fill this enumeration form. Now, once you fill the enumeration form, you can either do it online or your booth level officer will come to your house. You fill this form, and once this form is filled, the booth level officer will figure out if your name was in the previous SIR. For example, I am 44 years old and the last SIR was done in 2003 in Karnataka. 2002 in Karnataka. So my name could be in the previous SIR list, right? But if I'm not old enough and my name is not in the previous SIR exercise, then they will check with my parents or my family, is what the Election Commission is saying this time. If that is also not there, then I have to give a list of documents. There are 12 documents, including the Aadhaar, but the Aadhaar can be questioned if there is a doubt on your citizenship. This is what it is. There will be a draft roll published after the first collection of enumeration forms. You have to check if your name is still there. If your name is not there, then you have to obviously raise an appeal. Now, other than the enumeration form, there are Form 6 to be filled if you want to be registered as a new voter, and Form 7 to be filled if a vote has been deleted, shifted, etc. So what Mr. Yadav is saying is that, yes, India's electoral rolls are not pure. They are faulty. We need changes in our electoral rolls. But the solution would simply have been BLOs going house to check if a person is still living there, if the vote is still valid, instead of asking everybody to give documents. So now that the exercise is coming to other states, do you believe the problems would be similar like what was seen in Bihar vis-a-vis, let's say, a Tamil Nadu or a Kerala, or the problems will be different here?
It will be slightly different, but the basic exclusionary structure of the SIR remains as it was. I think what in normal conversations, people assume that SIR is nothing but one more exercise at revision of voters list. And the intuitive response is, what's wrong in revising the voters list? They need to be done. There have been problems. Why not revise it? Therefore, it's important to understand that SIR does two things which are unprecedented, which have never happened in the history of this country. Number one, SIR shifts the onus of being on the voters list from the state to the individual. There are two kinds of systems all over the world. There are state-initiated registration of voters, and there is self-initiated registration of voters. India has always followed the state-initiated system, which is to say, a government official comes to you. Earlier used to be a enumerator. Now they are called BLOs. They come to your house like the census officers come. They note things down. They get your signature. But the responsibility to ensure that everyone is on the voters list is theirs. The basic shift in SIR is now it is not their responsibility. Now it's your responsibility. They would facilitate it by giving you a form. It would not just be a blank form. The form would have many of your details already pre-filled in. But to fill it up, to attach the necessary documents if required, and to give it by a certain deadline is now your responsibility. And if you fail to return the enumeration form by a certain date, your name is deleted from the draft roll itself. And this has very serious implications. Earlier, if your name was on the voters list and was deleted, you would be given a notice, you would be given a hearing, you would be given an order, and you could appeal. But now, if your enumeration form does not reach the BLO by the set deadline, your name is automatically removed. It is not even called a removal because you have not submitted it. Therefore, no notice, no order, no appeal, no legal right to be heard. That is the one draconian part of SIR. This is as much the case with the second round as was the case with the first round because the basic structure is exclusionary. And Dhanya, the experience all over the world shows that the moment you shift the onus from the state to the individual, 5 to 10% people drop out anyway. If you look at the American experience, America has that system of self-registration where the onus is on the voter. You go and register yourself. It's none of our responsibility. In America, of the adult population, only 74% figure on the voters list. The comparable figure in India is 99%. So this is the difference that I'm speaking about. I'm not saying it will drop to 74% in India. But the moment you say, the moment you require the citizens to proactively do something in order to be on the voters list, you can expect 5 to 10% dropout anyway. So that's one major feature. The second thing which is happening for the first time ever in the history of this country is that voter list revision is being linked to checking your citizenship. And in this respect, the second round, the nationwide SIR, even more clear and blatant than the first round was. Now you're clearly being told, please establish that you were or someone in your family was on the voters list in 2003 or 2002. In the case of Karnataka, it would vary from state to state. Somewhere it will be 2002, 3 or 4. If you cannot establish that one of your family members was in 2002 or 3, then you would be required to give document. You would, in a sense, have to prove that you are a citizen of India. And that too with the help of a very restrictive, extremely idiosyncratic list that the Election Commission has come up with, most of which are documents that ordinary people have no business to possess. And actually, they don't have very much evidentiary value either. The only document which is easily available and which the Election Commission has grudgingly accepted to put on the list, being ordered by the Supreme Court, is Aadhaar. But as you would have noticed, even on Aadhaar, they have put a qualification that it is not a proof of citizenship, as if the remaining documents are proofs of citizenship, none of which is actually, most of those documents, other than passport and birth certificate, do not prove your citizenship. So why identify only Aadhaar? Because there is a reluctance on the part of the Election Commission to allow some document which would actually help the citizens. So for the last 75 years, the Election Commission was in a mode of ensuring that everyone can be included. It was an inclusive mode. Now it's an exclusionary mode. These two basic features of the SIR have remained, and that's why SIR continues to be an exercise in exclusion as much as it was in Bihar, and structurally it remains the same. Although in terms of administrative convenience, there are things which have been done. Election Commission has learned lessons, as I said, how to administer the medicine. They have reduced their own unease and problems, and they have reduced some problems for the voters as well. For example, you would not be asked to give your documents straight away. You would be asked for documents only if you cannot establish your connection in 2002. Number two, that the BLOs will carry Form 6. So in Bihar, the first phase was only about exclusion. Not a single voter was added in Bihar in the first phase. This time, the Election Commission has realized their mistakes, and they are giving the PLOs those forms. So certain things have been eased. And one important thing for which I should thank the Election Commission, which is that now the enumeration form provides for any member of the family to be able to sign on behalf of someone who is temporarily absent. That should help at least those migrant families, seasonal migrant families, who have left someone behind. This may not apply in every case, because in many cases the entire family moves away. But it would help the migrants somewhat. But the Election Commission has made no provisions to attend to other kinds of problems that were noticed and pointed out, namely disproportionate exclusion of women, disproportionate exclusion of Muslims. These are things Election Commission has not recognized, has not made any arrangement to attend to it.
Mr. Yadav, I have a couple of questions. Now, you said that it affects, for the first time, our voter ID card, the right to vote is being linked to citizenship, right? What happens, like say, for example, tomorrow, if I'm not able to prove my citizenship, what happens to me beyond the immediate inability to vote? Will the Election Commission send that data to somebody, other arms of government? Will I be sent to the police in terms of the proving my citizenship? What happens to my daily life?
Has that happened in Bihar?
Has that happened in Bihar?
One clarification. So it's not that that being on the voter list is being linked to citizenship for the first time, because in the Constitution of India, it's clearly said that you have to be a citizen of India in order to be a voter. So that's not new. The new is that throughout the last few decades, the convention has been, a clear understanding has been, that identification of foreigners is the business of Government of India, of Home Ministry. Once they say someone is a foreigner, the Election Commission removes the name. It is not the job of Election Commission to do this kind of inquiry and to come up with a certain kind of restrictive document in order to exclude people on this ground. This was attempted in 1980s. The case went to the Supreme Court, and we have a very famous judgment in the case of Lal Babu Hussain, where a large number of Muslims were excluded on the ground that they were suspected to be foreigners. And the Supreme Court clearly laid it down and said, this is none of your business. That determining citizenship is not principally the task of the Election Commission. And not just a Supreme Court judgment. After that, the Election Commission in every one of its orders clearly said this is not for us to determine. If we receive an objection, and if someone actually shows the objection, gives evidence, then we would do it. However, this has been inverse this time. Now the Election Commission is actively determining the citizenship, which is with a penal provision. The provision that people normally don't notice is para 5B of the guideline, which clearly says that if an electoral officer, BLO or ERO, finds that someone is a foreigner, they will not only delete the name, they will also report that person to the district foreign officer. There is no foreign tribunal in most parts of the country, but they will report that to the government. So yes, there is clearly a provision for penal things that will follow. The Election Commission by itself cannot do it, but they will report. And obviously all the proceedings that are done against illegal foreigners would then follow thereafter. About whether it was done in Bihar, now that's a very, very big question. Everyone has been asking the Election Commission, because the whole thing started by Election Commission saying determination of illegal foreigners is one of the 4 objectives that the Election Commission had listed. So at the end of the entire exercise, you would be absolutely justified in asking them, so how many foreigners did you find? This is a question Election Commission does not wish to answer. And as you would have noticed, this question was pointedly posed to the Chief Election Commissioner twice in the press conference held when the thing was announced. It just kept mum. The Election Commission has refused to reveal any data whatsoever. There could be 2 reasons. One reason could be that they didn't find any, or at least not as many as are worth reporting. And B, which is also very, very likely, that the ones that they found were actually Nepalese Hindus. As anyone knows in Bihar, the border that Bihar shares is with Nepal primarily. Bihar does not technically share any border with Bangladesh, although some parts of Bihar are very close to Bangladesh. Bihar doesn't share a border with them. So in all likelihood, the overall numbers that they found were only handful. And within those handful numbers, they were primarily from Nepal, as is very well known. There are a large number of women who have married from Nepal into this side of Bihar because it's the same ethnicity. And technically, they could be disqualified. So because that's the case, the BJP would not wish to play up, because it does not support BJP's narrative of Ghuspatia, because the whole point about Ghuspatia was not these Hindu women of Nepal. The whole point was to insinuate that hordes of Bangladeshi Muslims have come and settled in Kishanganj, Purnia, Katihar, Araria part of Bihar. And the fact is that Election Commission didn't find almost any. There have been 2 or 3 attempts to find out the numbers. And everyone who has made that attempt by indirectly looking at Election Commission, other documents, and then so on and so forth, no attempt has revealed anything more than a 2-digit data for a possible number of Muslim foreigners which this entire exercise may have determined. And that, unfortunately, is why the Election Commission seems to be so reluctant to talk about this issue.
So I want to ask 2 questions from what you just told us. One is the conversation about Rohingya Muslims. We have been increasingly seeing that in the southern states also. Not as much in Kerala and Tamil Nadu where the SIR process will start, but definitely in Telangana and Karnataka. Kerala too, there is conversation now that perhaps a lot of people who are migrant workers are Rohingya Muslims. So I think the BJP will do the same kind of language play in these states also. That's one. The second thing is, within the southern states, there is also another type of conversation regarding migrants. Now, one thing which Tamil Nadu parties have already raised is that SIR and the distribution of Form 6, which is to add voters, will be used as an excuse to add the North India belt voters to southern states and therefore change the demography of the southern states.
So let's first take the Rohingya Bangladeshi issue, because that's separate, and just complete that. This nonsense has been going on in our country now for the last so many years, and it needs to be buried. It needs to be taken on friendly. I think it's important for us to remember that It's important for us to recall that Jharkhand election was fought on this issue of Rohingyas and Bangladeshis, that Hemant Soren had challenged Amit Shah and Mr. Hemant Biswa Sharma, who was their chief spokesperson there and chief agent, to come with him and physically check out how many Rohingyas and Bangladeshis were there. Of course, they did not turn up. That in Bihar, this has been raised from day one. But having raised it, I think it's very important, Dhanya, to remember that which is the party which is raising this question of Rohingya and Bangladeshi? The BJP. BJP, as a political party, has a legal right to raise objections to anyone's name. How many objections BJP raised? 0. This party that goes around the world drumming the beat of Rohingyas, Bangladeshis who have infested Bihar, raised 0 objection against any voter. Number 3, the Election Commission gave 0 data, has so far refused to give any information whatsoever. And you would also recall, Dhanya, that this is not just now. In 2019, March, this question was asked in the parliament. How many foreigners have been detected on Indian voters list? The answer given on the floor of the parliament, written answer, said 3. So on the one hand, we have this whole propaganda. On the other hand is this reality. And this really needs to be busted because this is being said all over again. And, the strange thing is that a party which is in power for 11 years now, driven by a person who happens to be Home Minister for 6 years now, they are saying the country is infested with foreigners. So what were you doing for the last 11 years? And add to it a simple sociological reality that Bangladesh's per capita income today is actually higher than India and definitely higher than all the neighboring states of India because, I would discount the income of the southern states, which is much better. So why on earth would people migrate from a higher income country to a lower income country in order to do manual labor? I mean, the whole thing is so ridiculous. And unfortunately, the media is so lopsided that they do not bring out this elementary fact about this whole bogey of foreigners. So let's set that aside. The issue about migrants, internal migrants, seasonal migrants, or migrants who have, who stay for long periods in other parts of India. Now, the legal position is absolutely clear. If a migrant, let us say there are a large number of North Bengal migrants who work in Kerala, if they want to secure vote in Kerala, it is their legal right because they spend more than 6 months of the year there. If they want to secure, it is their legal right and no party should object to that because that very often happens. But the reality is, and this is not just in southern Indian states, the reality is the same everywhere. Large number of persons from Bihar come to work in Haryana. They come to work in Punjab. And the fact is that most migrants themselves do not want to vote in the place where they work because that's not where their family is. That's not where their local clout is. That's not the kind of power equation where they want to have an impact. So unless they are settling down there, most migrants actually prefer to go back and vote in the place where they come from. And these are not my conclusions or these are not my impressions. This is a document of the Election Commission in 2022, which looked at the problem of migrant voting and which came to a conclusion that actually it is better if migrants are given a right to vote in their home state, if they so prefer. We must remember that it is on their preference. If someone coming from Madhya Pradesh and working in Tamil Nadu wants to be a voter in Tamil Nadu, then it is their right. However, in most cases, they don't want it. And that is where this problem comes up. Because if migrants were to become voters in the places where they work, if they are encouraged or if they are pushed into becoming voters where they work, it will work to the advantage of some parties. In the southern Indian states, it would definitely be to the advantage of the BJP. So this is why BJP may wish to play it up. But to my mind, the correct answer is to allow the migrants to vote in the places where they come from, which is where they want to vote, and to facilitate the process, facilitate the SIR process in such a way that their names are not cut from the places of their origin.
So my final question to you, I don't know if Anisha has any, my question to you is, both chief ministers, which is M.K. Stalin and Pinarayi Vijayan, have already given out statements opposing the SIR process. But I think CM Stalin is meeting all the other allies and they may have a resolution, perhaps even passed in the assembly. But is any of that going to work? Like Kerala has said, we have local body elections. Do not do this in the midst of local body elections. Tamil Nadu has got its own reasons. Will just political pressure work, or will these states have to go to the court? And even would that work, do you think?
I'm not sure. You could add Mamata Banerjee to the same list. She has also opposed it. It's been imposed. And the funny thing is that the state where both the ruling party and the opposition have demanded it, they have not been given, which is Maharashtra. In Maharashtra, Mr. Devendra Fadnavis said that they wanted SIR before the local body election. And Aditya Thackeray says they want it before the election. Maharashtra doesn't get it. Kerala, where the assembly passes a resolution supported by the ruling party and the opposition that they don't want it, they get it. So yes, this is funny. Yes, this is odd. But I'm not sure if the election commission wants to push this. And as we can see clearly, all this is being done not by an independent election commission, which is interested in being a neutral umpire. Not to put too fine a point on it, I think the Home Ministry is driving the agenda through the Election Commission. And if the Home Ministry has decided to use a constitutional institution, and a constitutional institution says, well, we are going to clean up the electoral rolls, constitutionally, legally, it will be a very tough battle to say that a constitutional institution, which is vested with the authority of carrying this out by constitution and by law, should not be allowed to do so. So to my mind, that would be difficult. In practical terms, while it is important to protest against it, while it's important to register disquiet and dissent, while it's important to point out the unconstitutional legal aspects and illegal aspects of SIR, and while we must continue to hope that the Supreme Court, which has still not delivered a verdict on the constitutionality of SIR, will say something about many of the provisions which are blatantly illegal. While we do all that, in practical terms, it's best to start preparing and best to ensure that at the ground level, it does not become an instrument of disenfranchisement. I say so because states like Tamil Nadu and Kerala are very different from the rest of India, in that the penetration of political parties is of a level which North India and many other states cannot even imagine. So I cannot, it will be very hard, unlike in Bihar, unlike in Uttar Pradesh, it will be very hard for a BLO in Tamil Nadu, for a BLO in Kerala to delete large number of names indiscriminately without facing any opposition from the local party agents, because the local party agents do exist in this case. In North India, they are largely absent. So this is a battle which the opposition parties can enter. And in states where they have deep organizational strength, they can take on successfully.
I would like to respectfully disagree to that, because we have seen several examples from Kerala and Karnataka. I mean, I also believe that these parties are so permeated into the ground that they know every voter. But look at what happened in Kerala. Now we have enough reason to believe that a lot of voters were added in the Thrissur constituency where the BJP won in 2024 with proof, and those voters continue to exist even in the updated rolls after the election. That is one example from Kerala. Aland in Karnataka, of course, there was an effort to delete 6,000 votes, but that MLA, the Congress leader, had taken note, and that whole effort went to waste. In Shivaji Nagar in Bengaluru, there was a complaint to delete 22,000 votes. The opposition from the Congress was really minimal. Eventually, 22 people went to court. They got relief. And at the end of the day, 7,000 votes were deleted. I have personally met so many people who continue to live in Shivaji Nagar, but their votes were deleted. And the Congress, the JDS, everybody should have stepped in, but they did not. To a large extent, they could not, because they thought that the court will give relief to all, but the court gave only to the people who approached the court. I don't know. So I was also under the impression that this cannot happen in a state like Tamil Nadu, Kerala, or even Karnataka to some extent. But the examples in the recent past have shown us otherwise too.
You would know better. Karnataka doesn't surprise me, but Kerala does. My impression of Kerala is that the penetration of political parties, especially UDF, LDF put together, and in the case of Tamil Nadu, DMK, the penetration is of a kind that normally any large-scale deletion or any large-scale addition of false names, mind you, you can, a smart political party can always insert a significant number of fresh names with political effort, which are technically not illegitimate. So I thought, while those things are possible, but pushing false names in Kerala and Tamil Nadu against the will of the dominant parties would be very difficult. But then you would know better. Karnataka doesn't surprise me, because in many ways, Karnataka politics has many elements which resemble elements of North Indian politics.
I have one question. We know that the SIR has been done before, right? In 2002, at least in Karnataka it was. Is there any major difference between the SIR then and now? Or was it done on similar premises? Or what? You keep saying that it is structurally exclusionary.
Not at all. In fact, that's a big lie that the Election Commission has been using again and again. And in the press conference again, Mr. Ganesh Kumar said SIR has taken place 8 times in the past. We are only doing it now. This is a complete lie. Because what has happened in the past is intensive revision, and the difference is not only in name. Please remember that Election Commission, while it said to the world that it has, we are only redoing what happened in 2002-3, but they never attached the order and the document of 2002-3. When they were requested on RTI, Election Commission said it's too sensitive. They can't reveal this information. When the media approached it, then they said the file has been lost. And then Prashant Bhushan found the document and filed it in the Supreme Court. So now we have that 62-page document of 2003 in the case of Bihar. It will be 2002 in the case of Karnataka, 2004 somewhere. But this is an identical document. What does the document say? Show. Number 1, no enumeration forms were filled in 2002, 3, 4. So it's a lie to say that they are repeating what they had done in 2002, 3, 4. And there was an enumeration pad. The person came to your house, wrote down all the names, and got signature of one member of the family. That's all. There was no deadline to say that if you don't submit this, because you didn't have to submit anything. The onus was firmly on the Election Commission. Number 2, no documents were asked of anyone in 2002-3, except in those cases where the enumerator felt that the person concerned is not 18 years of age and is claiming to be a voter, or someone who is not an ordinary resident is claiming to get their name inserted. Otherwise, no documents were asked from 95% people. Number 3, there was no checking of the citizenship. Not only was there no checking, actually, the 2003 guidelines specifically say it to the enumerator. It is not your job to check citizenship. So you can now see what a big lie Election Commission has been peddling. Actually, 2002-3 had none of those elements of SIR, which are exclusionary. Honestly, if the Election Commission were to simply repeat what it did in 2002, 3, 4, I, for one, would have no objections to SIR.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us here on South Central. Hopefully, I think we'll have to come back to you again as the process begins here in Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Puducherry especially. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was a long discussion with Mr. Yogendra Yadav on the SIR, and I hope that is helpful to people, especially in all the states where SIR has been announced and will be announced sooner or later. We'll have a short second discussion, and joining us for that is Sukanya Shaji, our colleague from Kochi. I went to Kerala recently. In fact, I was in Kerala the last 2 days for something very bizarre. I was listed as the defense witness in the case of a child rape. So when I first got the summons, I was wondering why I'm a defense witness, which means the accused, which is a alleged rapist, his lawyer is put me as a witness, and that's your defense witness 1. So I sent a mail saying I was not available that week, I couldn't come. And as usual, the court issued an arrest warrant. So when the arrest warrant got issued, I had to go online, and the judge said, you have to come in person. So I went to Thiruvananthapuram, and in the court, they just asked me whether the interview which we did with the parent of the child and another counselor, was it done on this particular day? Did you do the interview? I mean, did TNM do the interview? I said, yes. Then I was wondering, so he has never briefed me, the defense lawyer, obviously, and the prosecution lawyer also, I don't have a reason to speak to. And I was wondering, why am I defense witness 1? So after my court appearance is over, I realized that the case that they are fighting is that this mother and the counselor made up this entire story, gave an interview to us, embellished details, and then made the child repeat that. And I was feeling so bad that my statement that yes, they did give an interview to us will now be used to perhaps get that man acquitted. But I can't do anything about it because I cannot tell the court that we didn't do the interview, right? So it was a very bizarre, surreal day for me. Yeah. Okay, Sukanya, back to you. We are going to be discussing 2 judgments, courts, sexual harassment again. One is from the Karnataka High Court, where a young woman went to court saying she made a match with a man on Bumble. Bumble is one of those dating apps, if you did not know. She was taken to a hotel room, and they decided to go to a hotel room where she then withdrew consent for a physical relationship, but he went ahead and raped her, is her complaint. But the court has given its logic on why that does not become rape. The second case is from Kerala. This is when the Hema committee report came out. There was a flurry of women who just spoke out about their experiences in the industry. One such woman is a Bengali actor who spoke about director Ranjith and how he tried to make a move on her, basically sexually harassed her. The Kerala High Court has said that too many years to complain. That is the main reason why her complaint has been rejected. So you just want to explain to the readers what happened in both these cases?
So Ranjith's case, the alleged incident took place in 2009. This is when the actress says that she was in Kerala for an audition for one of his movies, and he sexually misbehaved with her, harassed her. But the complaint was given only in 2024 in the aftermath of the Hema committee report. So this is 15 years later. So the High Court's reasoning in this case is that according to the Criminal Procedure Code, it is the law that if there is, let's say, the punishment for a certain crime is X number of years. So that many years or 1 or 2 years more than that, if you have taken more time than the punishment that is given for that crime to report that crime, then there is a limitation that applies. So the CRPC says this, the Criminal Procedure Code says this. So the High Court has said that this is 15 years after the incident has taken place. So why did the magistrate court take this case into consideration? So, but the Criminal Procedure Code also says that there's a clear limit, there's a clear exception to this. That is, if the court is satisfied that the delay in reporting the crime, in making the complaint, is justified by the facts and circumstances of the case, or if the court thinks that it is necessary to admit this case in the interest of justice, then this time period limitation can be waived off. But the magistrate court has to mention that. So the High Court says that magistrate court has not mentioned why it has taken up this case 15 years later after the limitation period has lapsed. And so we have to go by the rule of the law, and we cannot admit this case, and they have quashed it at the FIR stage itself. Now, when we go to the Karnataka High Court judgment, it is more recent. It is about, like Dhanya said, a man and a woman who met on this dating app called Bumble, and they've been acquainted for over a year. The woman's complaint says that they've been also acquainted over Instagram. They've been exchanging chats, speaking, all of that. And one day they decide to meet, and the man picks her up from her apartment. They go to an OYO room. And she says he initiated sexual intimacy, which she says in her complaints that in a complaint to the police that she has withdrawn consent many times during the act, but the act anyway continued. She says the man assaulted her sexually. And the next day, he dropped her back to her apartment and she developed some stomach pain and she went to the doctor. And then she has gone to the police and given this complaint. But here also, the Karnataka High Court says that, so it's what I find interesting is that the court starts its judgment with this whole setting of context, which is rather interesting. It says that we are in this digital age where people are meeting and people are, dating and in the world of digital intimacy. And then they introduce this app called Bumble and all of that. So the court has said that here there is no promise to marry. If the woman thought that, this was under a promise to marry and then there has been sexual intimacy and therefore it amounts to assault, the court says there's nothing that can be inferred like that from here. There's no proof of the sexual intimacy the intimacy against consent that the woman is able to produce. And the court also says that the court assumes that there is enough agency for a woman who, out of her own volition, if she can decide to meet a man, get acquainted with him, basically a stranger on the internet, and then go meet him. And then, so the court is also assuming that women of these days have enough agency to walk out of something. There cannot be anything here to really concretely say that there is any inclination of bad intention or malicious intention from the man's side. And therefore, the court has quash the FIR. So in both these cases, Ranjith's case and the Karnataka case, the high courts have quashed the FIR itself, which means this will not go to trial, which means the woman will not be examined. She will not be able to talk about other details or anything. And there is not going to be any record of this. This is quashed at the FIR stage itself. So I am of the opinion that cases should go to trial. I feel that quashing FIRs is not okay because of a few things. So in a way, I feel, I also want to go into the context of why I think so. Let's take the Karnataka case, for example, or even Ranjith's case, for example. The assumption is that the woman has agency. She's come seeking work in the Bengali actor's case, or in the case of the Karnataka woman that she has agency. All of this is the assumption of the court. But I feel there is this prejudice against women. I feel that we are committing this problematic thing of equating social agency to say that there is no gender power imbalance. I just want to explain that because I don't know if I've explained it adequately. I just want to say, let's say there's a woman who's taking an auto going back from work to her home or whatever in the night. And she gets out of the auto and she knows she's being overcharged and she knows she doesn't want to pay that money. But there are a lot of things that would run in her mind while she's thinking if she should pick that fight with the person. First of all, there's temperament. Second of all, I feel this reality of being a woman is influenced. It's so layered. It's so loaded by the things you see, by the crimes you hear, by what problems happen to your friends, what everyone else is going through. So there's this collective, I feel like a lot of women are always under this. You feel like you're in the cusp of some violence. You're always looking out for yourself. So you decide, you may not want to pay that money to that man, but you might just end up paying. Depends on whether it's a location where you have friends or family nearby, whether you're alone, what time of the day, all of this. I'm saying this to sort of underline what I mean when I say gender power. So it is true that women have been earning, in the case of this woman, like the Karnataka High Court assumes, the Bumble incident. Yes, she has agency. Yes, she is not, it's not the olden times where, promise to marry is such a big thing that, once you have sex with somebody, the female identity has perhaps evolved beyond that, where you don't think that it's a problem, it's something that taints you or whatever. Yes, that's a win. But I still feel there is this psyche of the woman, this gender power imbalance plays out even in this context. When there's a man in place, there is an inherent fear or an inherent thought of what if this goes into violence? What if something else happens? How much can I resist? Did I leave this person on? So lot of conditioning, lot of unexplained things come into, I feel, the woman's mind. And I feel that this is what we mean by gender power imbalance. So I don't think the square reasoning of the court to say that, you have agency, agency. Oh, you have money. Oh, you are empowered. Oh, you went by your own volition. So why couldn't you walk out? I would have understood if this was 10 years back. I would have understood if this was a woman less empowered than you. I don't think that is the metrics that metrics really works in understanding gender power imbalance. Dhanya, you were saying something?
Yeah, I just wanted to, first for everyone listening, Sukanya is also a lawyer by profession who turned journalist. So when she speaks about law, it is not just a journalist pretending to be a lawyer. She's also actually a lawyer. First thing is that. The second thing is this whole concept of consent. In fact, I was talking to a lawyer. I wouldn't want to take her name, senior lawyer. She represents a lot of these cases. And she said that courts are going through this churn where they are keeping men's rights on top of their interests more than anything else. Yes, please do keep men's rights on top of it. But courts believe that they are going to get backlash if they support women in, complaints.
Too much.
Yeah, in complaints about things which happened many years in the past, etc. And this whole notion about agency first, consent next. Agency, as a journalist who has done multiple stories on sexual harassment, anecdotally itself, I can say that women who have better jobs, who are belonging to better strata of society, perhaps in jobs like movies or politics, they don't want to talk about sexual harassment even as much as a woman just going about by her work on a daily basis to a government office, or someone who's a sanitation worker, somebody who's a domestic worker. These people have more to lose. So they are scared of repercussion. More to lose as in it's not that they're looking for benefits, I'm saying. They have so much more to lose because the backlash will be much more severe on them. The industries that they work in are not conducive to making these complaints. Not all industries are not, but some are more hostile than the other. So agency is not something that the court can suddenly decide on. Okay, are you educated? Do you have money? Are you in this job? Are you speaking English? Whatever. Therefore, you must have more agency, right? And the second thing about consent.
Yeah.
No, I just want to finish the point about consent also, Sukanya. So this whole thing of this woman meeting a person in Bumble and then going to a OYO room, the assumption is that when you go to a room, you do know what the man's intentions are. Therefore, you are given half consent. I have realized that kind of morality, at least in these last few years, I have realized that kind of morality applies to people above 35, 30, 40, whatever. For a lot of people who are young, they don't see that as, okay, I go to a room, meaning I'm giving license to a man. And I'm saying that even people who are 30 or 40, there are a lot of women who think that it's okay to go to a room, right? Because you're just going to sit and talk or you're going to do whatever. But you have to give, even for a sexual intimacy, there are grades of it which you can give consent to. Like, I'm okay with this much, not that much. So I feel, I do agree with you, Sukanya, that the court should have allowed a trial to at least happen and not quash it at the FIR stage itself.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make a couple of points with regard to the question of consent, right? Now, we have the Mathura rape case from the 1970s, I think, where a tribal girl was raped by two policemen, and then the court basically said, no, she was habituated to sex because she was a tribal person and they are used to it. I think she was from a denotified tribe, if I'm not wrong. And then this whole thing about she was habituated to sex, so she could not be raped, comes into the picture, and then the women's right movement takes over and they severely criticize the Supreme Court, I think it was, for that judgment saying, that you cannot assume, you cannot make these kinds of assumptions. So a lot of the idea, so the women's movement at that point of time pushed back against this archaic notion of ideas of consent, and we've come to a point where the court is taking consent seriously, but it does these kinds of rulings where it does not even permit a trial to establish whether an offense has occurred or not, and this is not something that we can take lightly. Again, this entire notion that going to a room means, okay, you're going to have sex and that is the logical outcome and nothing can stop it. That also is built into something, the notion of consent in parliament. If you look at the whole question of marital rape, right, which the parliament still refuses to pass a law on, the idea that, once you're married, your husband can do anything he wants with you is built into that idea. And this question, law commission after law commission has looked into it at the national level, I think, starting from the 1970s. And that idea continues to be perpetuated.
Also, this argument of you have agreed to go into a closed space, which means you've given half consent, is a very roundabout argument, which I really feel the court shouldn't go that way. Because see, on one hand, you're saying that consent has to be active. On the other hand, you're saying that even there are judgments that say a victim of sexual harassment and sexual assault or rape would go through considerable trauma. So it is natural that they would anticipate shame. They would feel they would be isolated. So there shouldn't be questions on their character. There shouldn't be questions on why there is so much delay, and that cases should be taken up. So on one hand, we have this narrative. On the other hand, you have this claim of, this whole very backhanded way of saying that, oh, you went there, which means you knew this would have happened, so you've given consent. So then you border on to victim shaming again. And combined with these are the procedural problems. Now let's say that you complain. Even in this Bumble incident, the woman in her police complaint says that consent was withdrawn actively multiple times. But the problem with not going into trial is that she will never, like we all know that victims of harassment go through a lot of trauma, and they may miss out some details in their first complaint, that they give to police officers. And there's also this prejudice. This is very well established about the believability of a victim. So you go and say something, if the officer who's sitting there looks at you and feels that you are whatever, a loose woman or whatever, there may be details that they omit. So many women have complained of this. Even in the Bishop Franco nun's case, so many times the nun has said that certain details that she has spoken about were not duly noted. This we see in a lot of cases, lot of procedural lapses, one in understanding, and it starts from believing the victim herself. Oh, how could you have gone through this? Oh, are you making this up? There is that whole thing that women talk about. So a lot of detail is lost in the first complaint when she goes to report this at the police station. Then there are procedural problems. Then there's problem, shaming, isolation, everything. And even at the court level, now the Kerala High Court has said, why has the magistrate court not explained why they're taking up this Bengali actor's case against Ranjith, despite the limitation period having been lapsed? So even the limitation lapsing here is not a hard and fast law, because the CRPC itself says that if the court feels that there will be a miscarriage of justice and it is important, or if the court feels that the circumstances explain why the person has, there has been so much delay in reporting, they can take the case. So this is a woman who is going up against a very powerful person who has spoken in also context of something that's very important, the Hema Committee report in Kerala. So there is this contextual backing to it. So now when you're going to be so technical about this and say that, oh, the court did not explain this, so this technicality applies, we're not going to take this up to trial. What happens is all the details that the woman could have said in a more composed manner later, putting her to examination, cross-examination, putting the man to examination, cross-examination. I'm not saying all these men are perpetrators. We don't know that. But the trial procedure is a procedure to establish that. And if they are innocent, of course, they will come out, the court will rule whatever it rules. But the important part is also that there will be something on record to say that this happened. And that recording also, I feel, is very important. Recording circumstances to understand how consent can be vitiated, to understand how harassment works, to understand what is power imbalance in terms of workplace, in terms of money, in terms of age, in terms of gender, what is imbalance in a space of intimacy between a man and woman. And it is through these judgments, these little things that are written in judgments, that precedents are set. That's how we read things, and we say, okay, maybe the outcome there was that the man was innocent, but the court noted such and such thing, this happened, and that could, become a precedent for something else. So that whole documentation process, that opportunity for both parties to speak, the opportunity for both of them to be examined, cross-examined, put back details together, all that is lost, which is why I really think that trial is an important process.
No, and just to wrap it up from what Sukanya was saying, now what the conversation will be that, oh, Ranjith has been let off free. The nuance that it is because the statute of limitation was not met or the magistrate did not talk about it is going to be lost on people, right? And rightfully so. Nobody has the time to sit and read judgments. Journalists only don't read judgments. How are we expecting people to read judgments? And about appearances, like when I went for this court hearing in Trivandrum, because I'm a defense witness, I actually stood on that witness box and all that. And I have to stand with the defense side, right? Which is all the accused rapist or harassers. Like one guy was there who flashed at a young girl. And the POCSO court. All of them are dressed like they long hair, but they properly combed it for appearance, right? And it suddenly struck me that their lawyers would have told them, when you come to court today, don't be your gunda self, like nicely comb your hair and wear a nice shirt. I remember the same time, a mother of a child who had given a complaint that the father was raping the baby, had to appear in court wearing a salwar kameez or a sari, because normally she would wear spaghetti tops or sleeveless. So her lawyer told her that, look, you can't wear this to court because we have to impress upon the judge that you are a sanskari woman. But despite all this, the judge wasn't convinced in that case. So anyway, thank you, Sukanya. Short discussion, but I thought it's important to have it.
Thank you.
We will move to the recommendations now. I want to give my recommendation first in case somebody takes it from me, because this is a recommendation I gave to everybody in PNM to read. It's an article by Jesse Barron. Jesse Barron, I read about him. He's a freelance journalist who contributes to New York Times Magazine. This article is called "A Teen in Love with a Chatbot Killed Himself. Can the Chatbot be held responsible?" It's a very, very disturbing article. Shocking, horrific, a lot of terms I can use, especially for people who are parents of teenagers. I have a 14-year-old son, and the boy who dies in this story is also 14-year-old. His name is Suel. So it really hit me very badly, the story. It's about Suel having conversations with a character on this AI app called Character AI. He falls in love with that character. He has a lot of sexting. He does a lot of sexting with that character. Eventually, the character keeps telling, come to me, and he dies by suicide. But the story that Jesse has written is not merely about what happened to the child. It's a wonderfully written story where he brings in the question of AI and how in America this case can perhaps lay precedent to whether what an AI says is speech. Because if it is speech, if what an AI says is speech, then the First Amendment, which is the right of protection of speech, will apply to whatever AI says. So this case is being very closely watched. It's really worth your time. Yes, it can be quite triggering and shocking, especially the sexting between the child and the AI. But do read it. That's my recommendation for the week. Anisha?
Okay, I am Bheja fried.
That's a recommendation?
No. But Bheja fry is tastier here. Yeah, so my recommendation is The Cat Who Saved Books. I don't remember the name of the author, but it's a Japanese author, and it's about a young teenager whose grandfather died, and now he is pretty much orphaned. He just has one distant aunt, and the grandfather ran a bookshop. And so after grandfather's death, one fine day, this cat comes along and says, I need your help to save all the books in the world. So, well, yeah, it's a fun read.
The author is Suzuki Natsukawa.
Yes. Thank you, Dhanya.
Unfortunately, there isn't a book on the voter registration thing. What they could do, yes, I think they could read a book by Ornith Shani. This is an Israeli scholar who has written on the very first election of India and how that election was conducted. It's in many ways a eulogy to Sukumar Sen and how universal adult franchise was actually put in place, which is what is being reversed now. Ornith Shani is the name of the scholar. The book is India's First Election or some such thing. Sorry, I'm I'm completely wrong, but yeah, it's not very hard to find the book. It's very well known.
Sukanya?
I have two recommendations. One is a book of fiction that I'm reading right now. I haven't finished it. It's called I Who Have Never Known Men. It's by a Belgian author called Jacqueline Hartman. It's a post-apocalyptic novel, very small. It's about women who have been surviving in a bunker. Some of them have memories of having been daughters and wives and all of that. Then there's this one little girl who has no memory whatsoever. So they're all in a bunker, just a few guards circling around, not allowed to talk to each other, given some limited food and all. It is very bleak, let me say that. It is very bleak, but it is an amazing, so far it's an amazing book on identity, on female friendships, on what a woman, of women realizing who they are and what they are in the absence of possibilities like childbirth, reproductive, there's no desire, there's nothing of that sort. In the absence of men, in the absence of having to interact with men, how your identity forms and all of that. It's really fascinating. I'm really enjoying that book. My second one is a Malayalam book, which I'm reading. It is written by a Malayalam journalist. His name is George Pulikins. He was also my teacher when I studied at the press club in Trivandrum. So it's called Thotta Charitram Kettilla. It is a very interesting book on the context of slogans, like protest slogans and different movements, rights movements and all in Kerala, and how the major slogans behind these movements evolved, in what circumstances they came about. It's a very interesting way of looking at the electoral history and the history of protests in Kerala. I've been reading a lot of that since the state will soon go into assembly polls and all of that. So it's a really interesting book, especially for beginners who want to understand a little bit of Kerala history that way. It's very interesting. So that.
Yeah, I know so many slogans. I can remember so many of.
You were a student leader,
Yeah. But one of my favorites was when we used to come back from a inter-school or inter-college competition, we'll say, Vijayasri Lalidarai, Vairunnu Nyangal. Okay. So yeah. So
what does that mean?
Means we're coming back victorious. But it's a way that we would shout, right? Yeah, it was fantastic. Anyway, so thank you for that, Sukanya. But to everyone listening, remember that all these recommendations are part of the show notes. Right from the first show onwards, our producer Bhuvan Malik has been religiously noting them down. So do go back to recommendations. Some fantastic recommendations have come through the weeks. So before I end South Central, remember this episode of South Central was brought to you by Newslaundry, our sister organization. Take a subscription which will help two news organizations, the News Minute and the Newslaundry, do stories which matter to you, because we are two newsrooms which believe in keeping journalism for free. So here's a QR code or there's a link in the description. Become a subscriber. Write to me at southcentral@thenewsminute.com. Bhuvan, we have to have one episode where we are reading out letters. I keep forgetting. Next episode has to be one topic and reading out letters. So do write more letters to us. I will read out in the next episode, Anisha. So let's work for you. We'll read out letters. Thank you to producer Bhuvan Malik, production assistant Ajay. Sukanya Shaji, who normally listens and writes stuff, is here today. Thank you, Sukanya. Thank you to Yana, who does our socials, and our editor, Jasim Ali. Keep listening, keep sharing South Central with friends, family, and colleagues, and even people you don't like.